Singing in front of people is my favourite thing to do. So thank you all for coming out. I'm really excited. It's going to be a good night. Alright. My first song is called Parallel Me. Enjoy. Parallel me drinks wine while the me down here just got another parking fine. Parallel me, she's such a keeper, while the me down here is still on job seeker. Parallel me, oh, parallel me.
I think my CF has played a role, and I think I'm more open to exploring that now than I was when I just didn't want to think about cystic fibrosis at all as a teenager. Friends of my mum would always ask her, is Lucy a bit like rebellious and a bit, depressed? Like, it has to be because of her illness, right? And I hated it. I was like, my illness is it's not interesting. I am this complex person because of stuff that's just not related to my illness. And I kind of push that away. And sometimes I still tell myself that narrative, but also I've just come to know myself a lot more in my 20s and to not push any aspects of who I am or things that have made me who I am away. And so I guess taking everything that has happened in my life informs the Lucy that sits here. Nothing is off limits. My name is Lucy Peterson and I'm 24. I'm a disability support worker. I really see my future career being an accredited music therapist, hopefully leading my own projects and initiatives through music therapy and just seeing where that takes me. The music therapy is beneficial for everybody. Talking about where you've come from, learning to manage emotion, finding helpful tools, all of that kind of stuff. I'm excited to show people that can be done through the lens of music therapy.
It's called Walking Contradiction. It's one of my favourite ones that I wrote last year, and it's about talking to the inner child, something that I learned to do very well through therapy. So I highly recommend, because sometimes our inner child just needs a hug and a talking to. And there's lots of things my younger self wanted to have achieved. And as I get older, I realise that just achieving the small stuff is better than these kind of grand plans I had when I was little that are maybe more fantasy. And I really like the existence I have, which is small and plain, but all in the most wonderful and beautiful ways. I guess it was just lowering expectations, and I really like that. This is called Walking Contradiction. I wanna live in a van, but it might be too small, 'cause I wanna have everything, but also have nothing at all.
I'm inherently a creative person, so I think my only options career-wise was something that would be inherently creative. A really rewarding and sustainable career, but also relies on me being that creative that I know I am, because I don't know what else I would do if I wasn't being creative. I could do stuff with other mediums, but love watercolor, and I developed my skills with it all over COVID, which is that's the result of all of this. Because I did lots of commissions for people through COVID. So most of my works are even with me. Songwriting will always be in my life. I think it's just a way of figuring out how to navigate not just life, but like literally week to week stuff. Sometimes I can be dealing with like a conundrum, or whether it's big or small. If I'm not songwriting, I can get so overwhelmed that I could just stare at a wall and like dissociate for hours while I think about this thing I'm grappling with. But songwriting is just a really constructive, useful use of my time. I've been writing fully formed songs probably since I was like 13. Maybe 11 or 12. I was writing a lot of poems. I've played violin since I was like 9. I got a bit sick of violin and I picked up guitar. And then I started putting those poems to some melodies, and soon they became songs. Sometimes I'll just have like the classic, like some words will just come into my head. And it's like a little earworm, and then I sit with my guitar and I like strum random chords and I figure out what it is my brain is like trying to tell me to write, because it truly just comes from within. I will just feel like a pull to like go sit down and just noodle on my guitar. And I won't know why I'm sitting there because nothing's coming to mind. I'll just feel like that's where I'm meant to be, and I'm meant to be doing something on the guitar. Something will come up. And then after that, I figure out, oh, okay, that's the theme that I'm inner me is like shouting out to write about. I have a very overactive brain, and I half hate it, but I half love it as well, because when I feel the high highs, they are just so high, and the euphoria is so real. And when I feel the low lows, they are so low, but I'm glad that I'm feeling things at all. I used to wonder if that was just my brain being the way that it is, or if cystic fibrosis and just having a very up and down, exciting but stressful life of chronic illness also contributed to me living on a very intense plane of thought and feeling. I'm glad that I have this very chaotic but fun brain. I've always hated the idea that like you are your illness. So by admitting that maybe part of my personality quirks is because of my illness, that kind of contributed to this narrative that everything comes back to this illness. I wanted to like disregard that idea for a long time because I was intent on being like, I am not my illness. It's a big thing to deal with. Of course, it's going to contribute to some of the ways that you think and your outlooks on life and your values. Maybe once you strip away the physical ailments, once you have something like Trikafta, you realize it's 50% a physical illness and 50% a mental illness, which it makes sense why it wouldn't be viewed like that when you present as a patient who is very physically ill. That's kind of the first thing to get on top of. Which is why maybe now there will only be more conversations about the mental health side of cystic fibrosis now that we're finding breakthroughs for the physical side. My experience growing up, there was not much of a link between mental health and having cystic fibrosis. I wasn't really hearing and seeing that in like media. That's probably part of why I thought I was a bit of a rebellious, like troubled kid, but didn't want to link it to CF because I didn't have anybody saying that, hey, maybe you feel really overwhelmed and like your brain never stops because you're also dealing with something that lots of people aren't dealing with. And I hope that maybe these days, if you're not the most diligent with your health, you know, you go through your rebellious phase, that maybe it's talked about in a way that like, let's embrace the complexity of why you say, screw my health. Everything I had to do related to cystic fibrosis was really boring. Therapies, not fun. Home life was just a whole lot of nagging all the time. That was boring. I think it was more fun to focus on like things like me being a very anxious-brained person who was a bit of a people pleaser, the reasons for those things being part of me, than to look at whether cystic fibrosis contributes to that. Because I was sick of thinking that CF was the reason for everything. And if I would have loved as a younger person for someone to tell me, hey, in the future, you're actually going to really embrace how CF informs part of your identity. I wonder if I would have found comfort in that, or I would have been like, nah, suck off. No, I won't. In the future, there's a high chance that you're going to end up embracing the parts of CF that actually inform your identity. And you may hate that idea right now. Maybe you hate it in the future. But I think there's a good possibility that it'll become your friend. Yeah.
'Cause I've never been that good at direction, always prone to chest infections. And I tried learning math, but I'd always just cry, I guess.